Good morning. For the record, Robert Cronenberg, Deputy Director here at the Planning Department. I wanted to introduce Michael Bayer, who is also going to be introducing his team. But just to give you a little bit of background, he is with the Maryland Department of Planning and manages a team that's working on transit-oriented development and coming up with tools as how to work on those within the state. He came to us a month and a half ago and presented to the chiefs the tools that they were using and trying to implement within the state. And I think he came to us because we probably are the most TOD development type county in the state. And I think we offer a lot of information to them that they can hopefully use with the tools that they're producing. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael and his team so that he can present to you. And I believe this was really intended to be, it's a briefing, so they may answer some questions that you have later on during the presentation, but I think this is it's a great overview that he's provided to us that I think you would appreciate as well.
My name is Scott Hansen, and I'm going to present the Transit Station Area Profile tool. Okay, great. So just to start off, a little background on what I'm presenting here. This is a tool to encourage TOD by providing users socioeconomic, demographic, employment, median housing sales, and ridership information. And we've designed it hopefully easy enough to use for everyone. Some goals that we've kept in mind while developing this tool, we obviously want to support local community development. And since the infrastructure, or the existing infrastructure is there, this will hopefully bring more riders and increase the return on investment. Also increasing the private investment in local tax base around these transit stations. And it's strengthening planning's role in promoting TOD both locally and statewide. We see great opportunity in regards to TOD with over 120 rail stations throughout the state. And we see a great multi-agency collaborative effort with MDOT, the Housing Community Development, Commerce, and other agencies to work together around transit-oriented development. So just touching briefly on the strategy, we want to provide users with planning and MDOT TOD-related information, and hopefully an interface that is easy to use. And we want to, and we have engaged with a stakeholder group, as Michael alluded to, with local state representatives, metropolitan planning organizations, transit advocacy and nonprofit organizations, small businesses, private sector, and real estate professionals. We're also coordinating with MDOT. They have their several TOD initiatives, so we want to make sure everything is I guess, well-defined and easy to use. And we make sure that we are listening to the feedback that we are getting and making changes to the product. And just a couple of examples of recent user group feedback, and I'll go into a demonstration of the tool. We had been asked recently to add the opportunity zones, MTA bus routes and stops, along with commuter bus routes and stops. And in Baltimore City, a request was made to add in the Charm City Circulator and bike share. Also, other information in terms of adding real estate information from the Maryland Statewide Property View database. Those are just some examples that we've been asked and we have added in just a short amount of time. So here's a demonstration, and let me just click into the link. It just takes a second to load. There's about 40 or so data layers that load up in this dashboard type interface. Just one thing to note, you have functionality across a tablet, a smartphone, or a desktop. So, and you get in full functionality. So you can do whatever you need to do in any of those devices. It may look a little different, but we've designed it so that it responds to the different device and the size of that device. You'll notice here we have a box that shows us essentially this is just an update history log. So we've made a lot of progress about responding to feedback for a while since 2017. It's been in development for a while. So just real briefly, again, this works on any platform, and you'll notice up top here we have several tabs. So we have transit and land use, median housing sales price, socioeconomics, employment, and then we have a help and survey tab along with other tabs. This one particular tab here goes to Maryland Department of Planning's webpage on TOD, and we also have a geospatial hub page, which we can look in later if you're interested. But the important note on this application is everything is driven by where you navigate on the map. So if you type in there's different ways to navigate. You can come over here and you can type in a station name. So I'll just type in Bethesda. And it'll zoom in, and you'll notice the charts around the side will change. And again, everything is driven by that map. And we have information here, just real basic station name, the line. We have a link that takes you to the station area projects and sector plans, comprehensive plans, when these projects will open, and a link to that that project's website. So this is one thing I want to make sure that everybody has see here. We also have information station access by mode and station egress by mode. And we also have ridership as well. So this box here is blank. This is being the MTA MARC, MTA Metro, and MTA Light Rail. But if we come down to the WMATA Metro ridership, you can see here we have information captured in 2011, 2015, and 2017. And hopefully we're going to have 2019 information here soon. So this is a nice way to be able to look at the information, the latest available information that is shared with us from other state agencies. And
do you have the same info for buses, like ridership on buses?
So we have if I zoom in close enough, we have the bus route and bus. Let me find out here if we do. So if you zoom in close enough, you will see a bus line, but I don't believe we have ridership. This is just pulling the particular line and any stops. So that's something that would be useful. I know it exists for the MTA services. So in like Baltimore, for example, we have the ridership, the boarding and alighting at each stop. But for the WMATA Metro bus, that information is not shared with us.
Or even right on, like in Montgomery County, the Montgomery County buses.
Right.
That is very important information, especially now that we're working on the general plan and we want to know where people are actually going.
Right.
It was so interesting to know, like, for example, if I live in Langley Park in Prince George's County, where do I go? Do I go to Bethesda? How many buses do I take? Maybe we need to rethink the way our buses are run, which we should, by the way. It's not a question, it's a statement. So yeah, work on that.
Well, and one of the things I think that's been useful from having this platform is now that we have a way for you to access very easily the data, there's definitely now the demand to have more data built into it. And now our challenge is to get that data and put it in a form that we can utilize.
A comment there, you're getting your information from the fare box on the MTA system in Baltimore. Supposedly Charm Card, if it still exists, was linked with the Metro card. So you should be able to get that same information from Metro on boardings. And Montgomery Ride-On uses Metro card as well, so it might kind of complete your perspective on that.
We'll definitely look into that. I think we got the MTA bus stop boarding and alighting information about 3 months ago.
Oh, okay.
So it's a work in progress, but that was something I have been keeping my eye on to make sure that the WMATA Metro bus information, as soon as that is shared, then we can consume that within this map application. We'll include that when we get it.
Yeah.
So MARC Rail. Are you getting MARC Rail?
We have MARC information in here.
And the commuter buses were the MTA commuter bus, you have that in there too?
MTA commuter bus, I do not believe we do.
Could I ask, just so that we can test this, would you pull up either Shady Grove or pull up Shady Grove or Boyd's or Rockville? Those are stations that Shady Grove does not serve MARC, but Rockville does, and so does Boyd's. And so you would see a mix. And there, so Rockville has a MARC station. It also has the Metro stop, and you can see people will transfer from MARC to Metro from time to time.
So this has, here you'll notice the MARC ridership. And we also have projected, no, that's blank for this. We've got the WMATA Metro ridership as well. So we've got some of the information for this stop as well as land use, land cover, and generalized zoning. And this just touches on, real briefly, on the transit and land use page. If I could show you the median housing sales price information on the next tab here, there's so much information we could do, spend quite a while. There's filters as well, which I didn't go over, but you'll notice here we have sourced the information down at the bottom, and what this does is you can manipulate this top bar here, and you can get a sense of, based on Maryland Property View information from 2015 residential sales data, you'll see two horizontal lines, one the median income for DC in red, and the median income Baltimore Metro in blue, in purple. And you'll get an idea as I toggle this line back and forth about housing sales price information and the variety of the different values captured in this 2015 data set.
Can you analyze, like when you have the screen right now, can you see how is transit compared to this? Like how many people take transit in White Flint versus Gettysburg? Like is there a map that you can have like a line telling you the transit ridership on this graphic?
We could superimpose something behind it.
Yeah,
that might be a possibility to do that. Right now, the only other way right now is to minimize this, go back to the station or stations in question, and then pull their ridership information in a separate window. But
it would be cool to know, like, because this is also a reflection of income, and link and see the income versus the transit ridership combined to see how many people based on income are taking transit. That's what I'm getting to. Can we have that before the general plan? Like 2 months from now.
No, that's a great idea. This is still a work in progress, so we can add as much as we can. As long as the information is shared with us, we can add it in.
Well, I think it would be great if the tool allowed you to compare multiple variables in the same
Exactly.
graphically. Yeah, I think you've already got a lot of this there, but if you can represent it on the same screen at the same time, that would be good.
We have an example of doing so. If we go back to the transit and land use page, something that is important that I did not point out, but we have the ability to filter. So if someone were interested in looking at a single station or many stations, all of these boxes surrounding that map, we can look at all of. So ridership, for example, we could look at maybe 2 or 3 stations, or if you weren't interested in doing a filter, you could come on this map and you could use a select tool, and essentially you could draw polygons around corridors, around the information that we have within each of these tabs, and you can start looking at entire corridors and looking at ridership on those corridors for rail, or hopefully we'll get the bus information for WMATA bus, and you'll be able to see that as well. So we've got different information here. We have a list of layers that you can turn on. Not all of them are on by default because it would be just too much, but I invite you to take a look at the information we have here. Something else really important that has been brought up in the past, folks would love to be able to download this information so they could look at the information, verify how it was processed, look at the source information, or maybe do their own analyses on their own. So within 2 or 3 clicks, you can see all the underlying information here. And there's pretty plain English field headings, so you know exactly what this information is, where it's coming from. And all you do here is literally come down here, export this to CSV. As soon as you do, this will open up into, if you have Excel, and you can start looking at the information or doing your own external analyses on this data. So making sure it was easy to use for people to use this within the tools on this application, or being able to export it into something that they want to use themselves. This, I think we've done a good job going in that direction here. Real quickly, just go over socioeconomics. This information, a lot of it is coming from the American Community Survey. And when it loads up here, you'll see all of these can be expanded again by maximizing each window. And each of these, this is population by race, but we can come here and hit the down arrow, and you'll see population by Hispanic or Latino. You'll also see, you can think of each of these squares as almost layers of a sandwich, for example. And there's a lot of information stacked up here. So there's a whole lot of information here. There are way more than what you just, these current graphics that you see. We've got vehicle availability by household. We've got owner-occupied versus renter-occupied, educational attainment. So I think the information here, along with the data in the other tabs, starts to point at larger issues in terms of transportation, multimodal accessibility, equity, et cetera. And just to finish off, the employment tab here, another piece of information, again, looking at everything together, I think it's very helpful. This is looking at all of the stations, and how you know that it's looking at all the stations is when you click over, when you hover over a number of jobs in earnings in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see these kind of teal squares. That indicates where the information is coming from. And so if you were to type in, let's go back to Bethesda here. And you'll see the number of jobs in professional, scientific, technical services, 10,000 of them. And this will update again based on where you are zoomed in, what station you are zoomed into. We have information here it's coming up the name Bethesda South for the purple line, and that information, if I just move over here, you will see the hashed purple line here with the stations, and we have projected ridership coming from the latest MTA study. I think it was in 2016. So we've got information also on land use, land cover, generalized zoning, and because employment here, we've got the North American Industrial Classification Sector related information here. Again, every tab that you look at, you can open this information, you can take a look at, and you can export it if you want. There is a help tab here. I have to usually go through this pretty quick, but we have a frequently asked question. I just want to open this again to stress, if any of you are on a tablet or a phone looking at this, it will look differently, and I've spent some time here just making sure that people are aware of there's nothing wrong with it. It's doing what it should. If someone has a question about filtering, sorting, exporting, you can get the answer here. And we also have some YouTube videos as well. So there's a lot of advanced functionality built in about maybe turning on a couple of layers and turning off some other layers. All that information is here. I'm also just an email, phone call away. And I encourage everyone to check out our survey here, which we've been using, and it's helpful to have documented feedback about what data sources to add, how to change the functionality. I think this has been a great help for us.
I have a couple of comments. Congratulations. That's an impressive application, and the fact that the data feeds come up very quickly. The benchmark is usually 90 seconds, and you're coming up much quicker than that, given that you are bringing in multiple streams, is very impressive. I did have one question. I love the fact that you have the information regarding the rendering or the responsive layout, depending on the device that's used. Is the site also responsive if someone is using an assistive device? So would they be able to read the screens if someone was visually impaired or was using some other type of assistive device to not necessarily screen scrape, but to read?
That's a great question. I will need to follow up with Esri. Esri is the corporation behind this development platform. If they are not there yet, I believe they are working toward a screen reader.
Okay.
But I'll find out, because that's a very important detail that I've got to find out.
Okay. But again, it's an impressive application. You asked about groups to approach, and I didn't see this, and if you already have it on the list, that's fine. There is a Planners Association, the Maryland Planners Association. They're having a conference in November. You may want to deliver this presentation at that event. Joe Griffiths is the point of contact.
Joe works with us.
Okay, so you know him. So
Yes.
our colleagues, I've gone to the conference in the past. I know our colleagues in other jurisdictions would love to see this, and more than likely would be strong supporters of this app as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I will note that I think the requests from local governments about specific data sets also helps to us to work with our sister agencies sometimes to say, hey, we've gotten a number of requests for these data sets. Can we make that available? And then that helps us to prioritize as well.